Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. We are continuing our slog through Chapter 1 of Line 5, the book I helped write when I was in Denton, Texas, working for Life Dynamics. And even though the book is an older book, I still do recommend it. There are a lot of cases in here that are very informative, and it's interesting to go down some of the rabbit trails and see some of the patterns. And the past 2 days, I covered the very famous Philadelphia Inquirer story, The Dreaded Complication, about live births, because we did use one of them in the section I'm going to cover today in Line 5 about failed abortions, where the baby survives. Where Line 5 really falls short, and I'm sorry, this wasn't my decision, the end notes really suck. It doesn't have the name of the plaintiff. It doesn't have the name of the defendant. It just gives you a court record number, like Lake County, Illinois Circuit Court case number 78L445, which makes it really hard to look up. And for most newspaper articles, all it gives you is the name of the paper and the date. It doesn't give you the title of the article, which again makes it really hard to find. But I did find The Dreaded Complication. I did cover that over a period of 2 days. And there are so many people alive today who have survived prenatal attempts on their lives that they have formed the Abortion Survivors Network for mutual support, advocacy, and awareness. And also, they do want to reach out to the birth mothers, to the women who had failed abortions, whether like Rosa Rodriguez, she decided to raise the baby after the attempted abortion, or whether like other women, she wound up making an adoption plan. It's an ordeal to go through, and something that a lot of pro-lifers don't get is that abortion clinics are very good at selling you on the idea that the abortion doesn't kill a baby, it just makes your situation go away. They talk about the pregnancy. And pregnancy is a state of being. So they're like, oh, we're going to terminate the pregnancy. This state of being pregnant and stressed out will be ended. And Nancy Jo Mann, who was the founder of Women Exploited by Abortion, even said after the saline installation and after her baby started kicking that it had never occurred to her. Really, she didn't get it that an abortion meant that the baby was going to die. She had just managed to hide that reality from herself. So you can imagine, you're like, I'm just going to make the pregnancy go away. It's just going to make the pregnancy go away. And then, you labor and you give birth to this live baby in your hospital bed or in an abortion clinic toilet. That's going to mess with your head. So, if you know of a woman who's gone through that, you can connect her to the Abortion Survivors Network. I do link to it in the companion post. But now we are going to look at the cases that are in that section of Line 5. Dr. Xavier Hall Ramirez initiated a saline abortion only to have the woman deliver a 4.5-pound infant. Nurses began to provide care for the baby and called Ramirez, and he ordered them to discontinue oxygen. Another doctor countermanded the order, and the baby survived to be adopted. Ramirez was indicted for solicitation to commit murder in his drive to make sure that this baby died. Then another case, a woman called Linda went for an abortion on April 27th of 1973. John Roe 724 only managed to remove part of the placenta. Neither at the time of the abortion nor at a follow-up visit did he realize he had failed to kill the baby. And Linda later gave birth to a child she called Chad, who was born with cerebral palsy and wounds on his head, body, arms, and legs. The next case is Joshua Vandervelden. His case is very easy to Google, and I'm going to do a fairly thorough write-up of it later. His mother, Linda, was between 6 and 8 weeks pregnant when she went to Fox Valley Reproductive Health Care on January 12th of 1979. Dr. Benjamin Victoria performed the abortion and sent Linda home under the impression that the abortion had been successful, but it hadn't. On September 18th, Linda went into labor. There were signs of fetal distress, so the baby that she named Joshua was delivered via C-section. He was placed on a respirator and hospitalized for 2 weeks prior to discharge. And his mother went public with her story and became a pro-life activist. John Roe 481 performed an abortion on Kamala in March of 1979. On November 7th, she gave birth to an infant daughter born disfigured and with cerebral palsy. Denise was 22 years old when radiologist Irma Roe 353 diagnosed her as 9 weeks pregnant. Roe performed 2 suction procedures on Denise on July 10, 1982, noted only scant tissue, and sent Denise home. On July 22nd, that's 12 days after the abortion, Denise returned to report bleeding, pain, and passing clots. Roe reviewed the pathology report, which showed no products of conception. She performed a pelvic exam and told Denise that she wasn't pregnant and instead had a urinary tract infection, so she sent her home with antibiotics. On September 28th, Denise went to the hospital. She was in active labor in a breech position with a fetal foot already protruding through her cervix. She gave birth to a 13.5-ounce baby boy who died about an hour later. Denise underwent an emergency D&C, lost a liter of blood, and was hospitalized for 3 days. She suffered depression, recurring nightmares, and 2 subsequent miscarriages. Lynette underwent an abortion performed by John Roe 49 at a Planned Parenthood in Michigan on July 16, 1985. Nobody performed an ultrasound to determine the gestational age prior to the abortion. After Roe ruptured the amniotic sac, he realized that Lynette was much further advanced in her pregnancy than he thought, so he sent her to a hospital. 5 days later, she gave birth to a little boy weighing 2 pounds, 3.5 ounces. The child suffered developmental delays, intracranial bleeding, hydrocephalus, and disfigurement. April had an abortion performed by John Roe 462 on February 2nd, 1987. There were no fetal parts found in the tissue, but the staff didn't inform April of this. It wasn't until May 7th that April learned she was 22.5 weeks pregnant. She had been so emotionally traumatized by the abortion procedure, and she considered a later abortion far too risky, so she decided she was going to have her baby. The little girl was delivered by C-section on June 29, 1987, but due to the loss of amniotic fluid caused by the abortion, the baby had chorioamnionitis, hypoplastic lungs, and hyaline membrane disease and died the next day. Lena had an abortion performed February 28th by John Roe 57 at what she was told was 2 weeks into her pregnancy, which is a little odd since at that time pregnancy tests couldn't detect a pregnancy that earlier. When Lena returned for her follow-up visit, staff told her the abortion was successful. On April 12th, she went to the hospital due to severe abdominal pain, and doctors told her she was 5 months pregnant. On July 10th, she gave birth to a baby boy, but the child died 2 days later from respiratory problems caused by the abortion attempt. Cheryl had an abortion performed by John Roe 263 at an abortion clinic in Maryland. Staff concluded that the abortion had been complete, so they didn't send the tissue to a pathology lab. On March 15th, Cheryl realized she was still pregnant, and she gave birth to a baby girl on August 23rd. John Roe 263 performed an abortion on Christine on December 20th of 1991. He kind of checked the tissue himself, concluded he'd gotten the entire fetus, and sent his patient home. When she came for her follow-up visit on January 2nd of 1992, he didn't notice that she was still pregnant, possibly with a twin that he'd missed. It wasn't until Christine went to a different doctor for a kidney checkup that she learned she was still pregnant. She decided to keep her baby. Doctors detected fetal distress on May 1st, so infant Brandon was delivered by C-section on May 1st at approximately 29 weeks gestation. Brandon suffered brain damage and was expected to require around-the-clock hospital care for the rest of his life. And the last baby in this section is a very famous baby, Ana Rosa Rodriguez. Her mother, Rosa, had gone to National Abortion Federation member Abu, the butcher of Avenue A, Hyatt, on October 25th of 1992. She believed herself to be less than 17 weeks pregnant, and Hyatt told her she was still in the first trimester of her pregnancy, which had to have been a lie, partly because he charged her $1,500 for this abortion, that's a late second trimester, early third trimester abortion fee in the early 1990s. And he chose an abortion technique that was only appropriate after 12 weeks. Now, Rosa paid $1,000 up front and left her passport, green card, and jewelry as collateral for the other $500. Now, after the abortion, Hyatt sent Rosa home with instructions to call his facility and nobody else if she experienced any problems. Excuse me. That night, she was in a lot of pain. She called, and an employee told her that this was normal. Eventually, she couldn't bear the pain anymore, and she went to the hospital where she delivered a 32-week baby girl minus the right arm that had been ripped off at the shoulder during the abortion. And Abu Hyatt, that National Abortion Federation member, is the doctor who also performed the fatal abortion on 17-year-old Sophie McCoy. I am guessing that Rosa Rodriguez went home with her baby, probably to get away from the publicity. I have no idea what the follow-up is. The last coverage I've seen, the little girl was around 18 months old, and then she just drops off the radar.